Hello, welcome to the Paranormal Peep Show on the Paranormal UK Radio Network, and you should be listening to us either on iTunes, Spreaker, or any other platforms, or even YouTube. We tend to get around these days, so we're all over the place. So if you prefer to listen to us on MP3, go to Spreaker. If you prefer to see us visually, go to YouTube. That's if we're still on YouTube, because YouTube seems to be shutting everybody down. But for the time being, we're safe and good, as long as we don't get too controversial. Anyway, well, welcome back to Andy. Now, Andy has not been brilliantly sparkly, have you, Andy?
No, yeah, I mean, talking about controversial, so this happened. I don't know
We
if that.
can't see it. Oh, right, that's it. Now, Andy
Yeah.
is shown to the screen, for those that can't see, one of those little testers for COVID-19 instant testers or something, aren't they? Or
Yeah, so it was inevitable. It was going to happen at some point. It really is a question of like when, not if. So I got COVID about 2 weeks ago,
Mm.
and I've done all my isolation thing. Apparently, it's really weird how it works. It's like you can stop having the virus, but then carry on having the symptoms a fair bit afterwards. So the virus is gone from me, thank God, and I can actually feel it's gone because like I do feel a lot better. The first week was horrendous. But it's like one of those things where you know it's going to happen at some point and you just got to get through it. It's like a driving test. Like, nobody really wants to take a driving test, but it's something you've got to do. And the way I look at it is like the same with COVID. The only way out of this mess is mass herd immunity. Really, the only way out of this is mass herd immunity. So we've got to get it at some point, and it's just a case of I don't really want it, but here it is. Okay, fine. Let's get my antibodies. Stocked up on vitamin C, vitamin D. I managed to find a source of ivermectin, but it still hasn't come in yet because it's coming from Canada. So a bit too late for ivermectin. But yeah, vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc. That really helped. I don't think I was ever in a situation of needing hospitalisation or anything like that.
Mm.
Fairly lucky in that respect, but it's not pleasant. It's not a pleasant experience.
So this ivermectin stuff you're buying from Canada, this is the stuff that President Trump took when he called it? Was that the
No,
same
he
stuff?
he took hydroxychloroquine.
Oh, okay.
Ivermectin's even better. So there are
Yeah.
peer reviewed, top medical doctor reports on ivermectin wiping out COVID in 2 days. And yet, why are we being told jabs, 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 jabs? We should
Mm.
be told ivermectin, 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 ivermectin. But we're not. And I'll tell you why we're not, because it's out of license and they cost like $1 a pill. They're cheapest chips. You can get them anywhere. They're on the WHO list of like top medicines to have. They've passed all the safety tests, and there's just no money in it. All the money is in jabs, so
Mm.
it's all
Mm.
about the money. It's all
Is
about the
there a
money.
problem buying that to bring it into the country?
No, there wasn't actually. No, and funny enough, weirdly, it was a UK website. I've forgotten what it was called, but it was .co.uk. It's quite legal to do. You can do it. You don't need a prescription. Off I went, and I even got like a follow up call as well. So you type in your details, you order it, and they call you just to make sure that it's you and you've ordered it and you've placed the order. But there's no questions about any kind of like medical background or medical history or anything like that.
Oh,
Um,
and what was this medicine previously used for? Was it for similar kind of illnesses?
Anti-parasite.
Oh, right.
Anti-parasite.
Okay.
So it's on the WHO website officially for treating scabies and things like worms. So the double good thing is that if you've got any pets and if they've got any worm problems, you can get rid of your worms as well.
Wow. So your cat can
Um,
be COVID free as well.
yeah, and it's safe to use. Obviously, you don't want to overdose on them. But I ordered the 3 milligrams. It can go up to 6 milligrams and 12 milligrams. I went for three. It's the lowest dose. There's basically, there's no or hardly any side effects you're going to get from it. And yeah, it's just I personally think this is my personal opinion, not the opinion of the radio show. My personal opinion is if there are enough medical reports that ivermectin wipes out COVID in 2 days, like I'm seeing, I think that the people withholding this information and withholding ivermectin for COVID use are war criminals.
Hmm.
I think they're genocidal war criminals to do that. If you know something is going to wipe out COVID and you are stopping that information or stopping that drug or not even mentioning that drug, you're a genocidal war criminal, as
Mm.
far as I'm concerned. But hey
Mm.
ho. That's the controversial
Well,
part.
I saw something controversial. Whether this is true or not, I saw something on Facebook that said about everyone on this cruise, which I didn't think cruises were running, because where I am at the moment, I see cruise ships moored up in the harbour, and they've been like that for the last year and a half. All these cruise ships out in the bay here in Dorset. But supposedly this cruise ship had all these people that had been jabbed on the cruise ship, and they were
Yeah.
masked up, and yet they were still getting COVID, according to what this report on Facebook said. Whether it was true or not, I don't
Yeah.
know.
No, it's absolutely true, Neil. I'll tell you why. These jabs, they're not actually vaccines. Okay, again, this is
Mm,
my opinion. It's not really my opinion, but for legal reasons, I'll say this is my opinion. If you get jabbed, even double jabbed, you can still be infected with COVID. You can still transmit it, and you can still carry as much viral load as somebody who's
mm,
unjabbed. Okay.
mm,
The medical definition of a vaccine, I'm pretty sure, is to prevent the spread and infectious nature of the disease. If it's not doing that, then what is it? Well, we're
mm,
left basically with the gene therapy. We're
mm.
left with the gene therapy, and I don't know if you've seen the pictures on my timeline, but if you have a look at a doctor who's had a look at the blood smear tests of people who are
Oh
jabbed,
yeah,
unjabbed,
yeah.
shows normal healthy blood cells, jabbed shows I don't know what it is. It's just like a mess. The reason people get in clots, when you have a look at these blood smears, the nuclei of the blood cells are destroyed. They're clumped together. They just look like somebody's just taken blood, stuck it in a blender, and just added God knows what. It actually reminds me of iron filings. You know, when they cling together,
Oh yeah,
up
yeah.
together, it looks like that. And this raises another point of, if jabbed blood is looking like that, which looks bloody awful, what's going to happen with blood transfusions? What's going to happen with
Mm,
blood donations? They're going to start running out
yeah.
of blood, because I'll tell you what, and I'm looking at it now, and anyone who wants to have a look at this, just go and have a look at jabbed blood smears. And yeah, I'm looking at it now. There's no way that blood clearing stations and blood banks can have a look at those smears and think, yeah, that's healthy blood. We'll use that for an operation. So
Mm.
they're going to start running out of blood soon.
It's interesting actually, because a number of years ago I was going to donate blood, and I had to fill in a form, and I had to put down that I had various ailments, and they said, "Sorry, you can't give
Mm,
blood because of these things you've got." I thought, "Oh, okay. Well, I tried to do my bit for Queen and
yeah.
country, but I'm not allowed." So maybe I don't know. It's a very interesting point actually, and something that I didn't consider about people that have had this COVID jab, then offering presumably to give blood. It's maybe become inoculated through it or something. It's weird, isn't it?
Have you heard of the
Crikey.
Anthony Fauci emails as well that have been released?
What's happened there? I know he's quite controversial, that guy, isn't he?
Oh, he's a very naughty boy, Anthony Fauci. So it turns out through his email releases that he has been funding what's known as gain of function
Oh yeah,
research
yeah.
in bioweapons labs in China. Gain of function means taking deadly viruses, mixing them with animals, and making them more transmissible. And
Mm,
it just so happens that this bioweapons lab is in Wuhan, China. Now, isn't
mm,
that a coincidence?
mm.
Isn't that a coincidence?
I think he needs to stand in the corner.
I
Um,
think he needs to be Nuremberg.
yeah.
That's where I think he needs to be, on trial as a war criminal. But hey ho, that's
Well,
the controversial bit.
well, at least you're on the mend, and that's even before you've had this magical stuff from Canada. So you'll be on even brighter and sparklier
Yes,
after that.
indeed.
So welcome back to the world. Good, and you got through it. Well done.
Got through it, and I'm furious.
And
I'm
he's
furious.
furious. Right, we better move on to our guests. And you
We
heard a
had,
few
yeah.
chuckles there in the background because of what Andy was saying. So we're now revealed the source of those secret chuckles. Now, welcome back, Alyson Dunlop. But we've got an addition to the Dunlop uh, household. Welcome back, guys. Alyson, hello. How are you, first of all, Alyson?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes, no major illnesses, thank goodness.
No
Uh,
nasties up your neck of the woods. Good. And who's the mysterious stranger sitting next to you?
well, this is my newest husband.
Newest.
Yes, yes, yes. It makes me sit up and think as well.
Ian Shanes, psychic medium from Glasgow.
So, our special guest this evening then is Alyson Dunlop Shanes and Ian Shanes, and they both happen to be psychic mediums. Ian Shanes, welcome.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Have
for
you both
joining
managed
us.
to avoid the COVID?
4th of December.
I think they're pretty good because they're squashed up together to get into the shot now, so that they're pretty much COVID sort of clear or something on the 2 meter rule doesn't apply to them and stuff like that. It's kind of
Still
strange.
in the honeymoon phase.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have been okay, presumably, have you? As far as that's concerned, you've been safe and
Yeah,
stuff.
nothing like that from me personally, but one of my friends, his son unfortunately succumbed to it, and the guy was only in his early 30s. And that was a great pity. But I don't really know of anyone who's had. Well, your brother and sister.
My brother and sister-in-law had it as well.
Wow.
They seem to be fully recovered now.
My sister-in-law still is very, very run down, very tired, many months on now. A friend of mine also, she's got long COVID as well. But we have been mostly isolating because I've got various disabilities and immune system problems. And so I had to shield most of the time, which is fine by me. I'm quite used to being indoors. And we're both, hate to tell you, Andy, we're both double vaccinated as well.
Well, all I can say is good luck. May the gods be eternally in your favour.
They generally are.
Did you have any side effects? Because some people reported different side effects after they've had the jab. Did you manage to escape any of those?
Me?
Well, any of you?
Any
Yeah.
side effects at all? No. I've travelled quite a bit around the world, and I get various injections for preventative measures. You see, against wherever I'm going, and usually it's just a sting in the arm, and occasionally you get a sting in the arm and a bit of stiffness later on, maybe 24 hours at the most. I've never felt faint or nauseous or anything like that. And not even that when I got the 2 jabs for COVID-19. No, I was neither up nor down at all.
Right. That's good to know.
Maybe it's just I'm one of the lucky ones, because lots of people say as soon as they get it, within a matter of a few hours or a couple of days, certainly, they actually feel the effects, and it's not positive.
Yeah.
It's not positive.
Yeah.
I think it all boils down to the individual. You can't. You have to use a very broad brush, very brush stroke here to say that this will work for this one and it won't work for that one. We're all individuals in many, many different ways, and the human body is one of the things that shows itself up only too clearly, that we are not all the same.
Absolutely. I mean, Andy talked about blood transfusions earlier, and I mean, the fact that we've all got different blood groups is one example of individuality, and then we've also got our own little gene pool individualities and things like that. So, these injections, they're a kind of coverall, but they won't suit everybody, simply because of the minor difference.
We've all got our own weaknesses in the body as well.
Yeah.
And that is going to be, I would imagine, a big factor in how you react to it. I did get a few symptoms, a very slight pain in my arm, but it wasn't really that bad. And I would occasionally feel a bit shivery, fluish, and a bit like stiff in the joints. I get that kind of stuff anyway, but it would come and a wee bit feeling like nauseous, and then it would go away, and then a wee while later it would come back. So it wasn't there the whole time, and that just lasted a couple of days with me, and it really wasn't very much at all.
Have you checked to see if you're magnetic?
There's a magnet on this.
There's a video going
and
around where these people are
sticking to me.
putting magnets on their arms or something where they've had the injection, and these magnets will things stick to them or something.
Yeah. I've had nothing like that.
Okay, so COVID injections aside and things like that, we've all kind of made it through this so far anyway, so that's good.
So far, so good.
So far, so good. So, with respect to the fact that everyone's been on lockdown, your normal psychic circles that you take part in and run, presumably have had to be stalled for that amount of time, have they?
Yeah, it was off for certainly 2 months. And during that time, I still had an awful lot of people contacting me, wanting to know when we were starting up again. And I just put a blanket message saying, well, not until I get the all clear from our First Minister, who's only doing the best she can. She can't control this COVID thing. That's out with her control, totally. And she needs advice from professionals who know about these things before she can ascertain what the opportunities to get closer to the 3 days it were, and we can get back to normal. She can't act unless she gets all this advice. And this all takes a lot of time. This takes time because there's more than one group of persons have to get together to come to some agreement as to what we can do long term, short term, mid term, whatever it happens to be. But I send, as I say, I send out these blanket messages to various people, and some people are still interested. But in the last 2 months, I've started again, but I'm only doing my development circles in the TS in Glasgow for two Tuesdays in the month, the second Tuesday and the third Tuesday, and that's it. Because I used to do an awful lot more than that, but I'm slowing down a bit now, but I haven't lost any enthusiasm. And the people that are coming along are still, we've had to reduce our numbers because lots of people want to know all about these sort of things. If it's just a case of coming in the door and, paying a $5 and getting your tea and coffee, and someone gives you the so-called message, a lot of people are content with that. But the ones who want to actually develop are the ones who are, and it's going to be a small group, 6 people, maybe 8 people who are so regular. And it's aimed at the people especially who are interested, have had very little experience, and maybe even very, very recently coming to my circle. They've started to pick up information, coincidences, strange dreams, and the feeling that they should be doing something about it. And that's what the circles are for, people who fit into these categories. And but as soon as when they come into the library in the Theosophical Society in Glasgow, I give them the usual spiel: just to sit, relax, listen to the music, meditate lightly, just forget all the cars that are driving by outside, forget the creaky floorboards when I'm walking about. That's not why you're here. You're here to meditate. And if it's only for half an hour, just do it. Just relax. Totally relax. And I said, don't be afraid to fall asleep. And generally, there's going to be a few of them that actually do. Yeah, I've almost got to straighten them up in the chair, I sort of walk by and say, "You all right?" I think, "Oh yeah, I'm fine." And then they go back into it again. Some go in terribly deeply. I get information about this sort of thing from the guides that are with them. They're standing right beside them, and I look at the human person and I ask my spirit guides and teachers, who is with this human being? Who is with this person? And they just move my head to left or right, or both. And then I'll know who is there. And there might be others there that I'll see later on, because I've got to do certain things to suss out. You see, anyone could come in and they're genuine and all the rest, they want to know. But they've maybe got a little bit of a hang-up. Someone has died in the last year or two, or even sooner, and they're desperate to get that contact back. And I try and tell them to the best I can without shocking anybody. With some people, it's like we're talking about the blood conditions and all the rest. We're all so different. The one you're looking for could be right next to you. I wouldn't know until I find it. And if that's the case, I will sometime tonight tell you that is the case. but I'll give proof because they'll give me proof to give to you.
Mm.
But don't try and cling on to the spirit people. They're allowed to be there for a certain while, so you get your balance right and realize this mortal being here is only one part of what makes you up. And you will literally meet all the other friends and family and all the rest of it when you leave that body. And everything that you see in your material life and have seen, you will see exactly the same when you pass over. There is no sudden shock intended. A car will still be a car, a tree, male, female, young, old. They will be exactly as you would expect to see them. You might be surprised to see them because you think they're all dead. Only the physical body has been left behind. Your awareness is still going out. And the awareness is the thing that I try to encourage in the circle. Sit, relax. Anything that comes to you, all your five senses will be used if it's necessary. The sixth sense will also be used. All you have to do is absolutely nothing. Just relax. Spirit teachers that come to people do 99% of the work. You do 1% by simply being in that chair in the right place at the right time. And that's all you have to do. And if you're open-minded and not too greedy in searching, because you only put a blanket on if you do that. If you just open your mind, relax, the music's on, go with the flow, I tell them. The music will relax you. Just think about you're sitting at home in a nice, comfortable chair, and you've got music you like. But the music is generally of a low-key nature. It's not bump, 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 modern pop or anything. It's of a low-key nature to bring the mind down to a level where you are more open to any kind of information that will come into you. Tuesday past there, I got one girl came in. She's a new girl. I've never seen her before. And she came in with another young lady who had also been once before. So one of them's been twice. This other new one, she's just come in the door. And I asked her, have you had any experience of anything? And I pulled her leg. Said, because I said, this Tuesday we don't have any human sacrifices, but next Tuesday come back and see what we can do for you. You can see their eyes opening with this. But I tend to wind them up a little bit, and then we just calm it all down and start. We break the ice, sort of thing, right? I like to do that, and then we start. And what at the end of the evening in the circle, I'm asking, did anyone see this, feel that, or anything, or nothing at all? You might not, but don't be anxious about it. She said, I don't see all these things that other people talk about. All I saw was my grandmother's chain with some kind of jewel on the end of it. And that's all I saw. And I looked at it. That's the first thing through the earth, the first person who's come into a spiritual church or a development group. And you say that's the only thing. There are people who would give their eye teeth to see that first time through the door. And she thought, well, I didn't think about that. It can happen so easily. Just an idea put in your head to recognize something or someone. And it all starts from there. Because we're all beginners, really, unless you're into it or not. If you're not into it, fine. I'm not out to make converts or anything like that. That's not why I'm here. But to let people understand with assistance from other spirit beings who are very like you, either physically, emotionally, intuitively, your heart's in the right place, sort of thing, and all that. They can work with you because you're of a similar character, and they want you to get all you can out of your material life, to do things, to have a passion for whatever, your computers or art or sciences, gardening, baking, anything you like, and they will help you get the enthusiasm to develop on a little bit. But eventually that 99% that they do drops to the 80%. Then you come up a little bit, and then it drops to 60%, and you're coming up. Then it's 50%, and it's 50% each way. You're still becoming more intuitive, picking things you want to do, turning things away you're not interested in. You're becoming more rounded as a person.
Why do you think it is? Why do you think it is that when you've got all these ghost shows, especially kind of ghost hunting type shows, they only really seem to kind of connect with the negative, whether it's the demonic or just kind of negative spirit?
Well, let me just suggest. You've said you've said the thing. They're shows. They are shows. They're meant to get. It's Hollywood on the wee screen, right? And their idea is to get you hooked on that, so that you'll think this is wonderful. I must watch this every week, and that's fine. People like that. I'm not into that. And I've been places and done things that people just wouldn't believe. The hauntings. They did a lot of that, and it was the only one or two were ever really seriously sort of not demonic, although they got very close to it. They were just nasty people who were trying to get into someone's head to manipulate them. But not everybody's like that. Not some of them when they leave their body, they don't even leave the earth plane. They're exactly where they were in their own home or at their own desk. And that's why you get some people saying, I won't go into that office anymore because I'm sure someone's watching me. And there is. I've been places like that. And I see them. Some of them are more afraid of being recognised than the human being. And it won't be the first time I've been sitting somewhere and I've seen, say, a person sitting across on the cafe. Well, I was at a cafe once years ago. This is only one thing I'm going to talk about. Across another seat, young woman, got the dreadlocks, all the bling, and she's sitting there with her head in her hands, absolutely bored out her skull. And I said, hello, how are you mentally? This is where this telepathy comes in. This is where you start to realise your words in your head are exactly the same words that you would use if you were speaking vocally. If you send the same words out there, they can pick it up. And boy, some of them sit up real quick when they realised they've been spotted. Stands. They've been not just seen, but they've been understood, and that they can communicate now. They can do it. And that surprises them. Not all spirit people are floating on a white fluffy cloud with a harp and a halo. Some of them still have this. A lot of them still have the same attitudes that they had before they stopped breathing. Some of them were generous. Some were bolshy. Some were nasty. Some would give you the shirt off their back, and all things in between. And it's that character that you've created from you were an infant to a grown adult, if you're lucky enough to live that long. If when you go across, that is who you are. That is your fingerprint. That is your aura. If some people want to call it that, that means they can recognize you and who you are and all the rest of it. And you can recognize them. So the more practice you are with using your telepathy, your mind, the more ready you are when you leave here to go over. And some people see this big white tunnel, fine. If that's what they see, this tunnel with the light at the end of it, hot dog, good for you. As long as there's someone there to get you across or to help you. But it doesn't work that way with everybody.
When you communicated with this lady in the cafe and she presumably sat up because she heard your thoughts reach her, what then transpired? Was she presumably dead and just a trapped spirit or something?
Yeah. And this happened twice. The one I'm talking about just now would have happened when I'd really first started to learn about spiritualism. And it's through spiritualism that you learn to train yourself. But just sitting and letting all these people come to you. Now this would have been in the mid-80s at most, right? 86, 87 at the most, right? I'd only been doing it for 2 or 3 years maybe, right? And she didn't want to move. I couldn't give her any assistance. I offered a lot of assistance, but she wasn't interested. She had no idea of where she was, although I explained it to her. You're in a fish and chip shop. Where are you going there? Before going to the TS, I'd have my fish and chips and a cup of tea and a bread and butter sandwich, and then I was off to the circle, which was 4 miles away, right in the centre of Glasgow, and that was regular. I remember the next was going, but she wouldn't have any of it. No, don't bother. I'm all right. I'm just happy where I am. But I said, you can't be happy. You're stuck. I can actually help things move along. No, don't bother. I'm all right. Thanks very much. And then she just disappeared. And I thought, well, that's it. I did my bit. Now, it's about 5 years or 6 years ago now, at the most, the same situation happened This is a good one right enough. Same situation happened in a cafe, West End of Glasgow. And Alyson and I were there together. And we were talking away quite the thing. Now, I'm used to having spirit people around me a lot. And I'm very perceptive. I know when they're there. And I can find out what they want because I asked them. Some of them are very experienced in working with human beings. While Alyson was talking to me or I'm talking to her, I knew that on my right-hand side, there was someone talking to me. And there was two standing, but one did the talking. And he said, we've been watching you. We've got someone here who needs some help. I said, well, what do you mean? And I'm saying it in my head. Alyson's still talking and I'm nodding at the right bits, you know. Yes, dear. But my head's over here or somewhere else. And he said, there's someone sitting, there's a young woman at that table there. I turned my head round and sure enough, there she was. He said, this is what he said, she's a bad influence on human beings. And I said, okay, why? And he said, would you talk to her? And I said, okay.
So was she a spirit lady or a physical lady?
Yeah, she was a spirit lady. There was no one in that chair. The table was empty. And when I looked at the place, there's this young woman sitting there, and she had her hand. She's bored, absolutely bored stiff. And I said, I wasn't quite as direct as I had been with the one years before. I sort of just slipped a conversation. How are you doing? You don't look very happy. And she just looked at me and said, yeah, I don't understand why I'm here. They won't let me go anywhere. They keep me in. That's the first clue. And I said, why is that? She says, I don't know. They just put me in a place that I can't move about. I can't go anywhere. And I said, well, I'll tell you what. I can arrange something for you. This is part of what's called rescue work. And it applies to many, many different things. And I mean, whole ages are gone by and all sorts of things. And I've done these before with this young girl. And I said, well, look, if I have a word in the right direction with some of the people around him and get you out, I mean, I wouldn't want to be bored, you know, and I'm making it's a personal thing between her and me now. I don't fancy being stuck in a place I couldn't get out. But if I can arrange something, will you go? Do you want to go? And she said, yeah. I said, hang on a minute. And I knew these guys were watching me that were standing beside me. And I said, well, I'm going to do this. And I said to her, the routine, again, this is a routine thing. I said, you know, there's a door just over your right shoulder there. Do you see it? And she said, no, I can't see it. I said, well, okay, it's quite dark in here, so you probably won't. But you'll see the light coming through the top of the door and down the sides. You'll see a hand. I see it. Yeah, I see it. I said, well, when they're not looking, just go for it. They won't have a chance to get you. She said, you sure? I said, nice and quiet does it. You're talking at this woman's level, right? She's enthusiastic. She's up. She's got something to do now. Her mind's going forward. It's not stuck anymore. It's going, here's an out. I said, just go through there. There'll be someone to collect you and you're off. You'll be fine. Back to the situation you wanted to be in before. No problem. And she went, gone. So I said to the person that was with me, I said, I've done that. And they said, we saw that. That was good. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. 1 minute later, there's someone else standing beside me, another spirit person. And he says, we've been yes, it's more or less the same conversation. He said, we've been observing you for some time. Would you like to work with us? I didn't know who the blazes he was and what he was doing. But I've realized I'm my own master. And I like to get more information than just, can you help me all the time? I need to know a bit about them. So what I said was, and it probably wasn't very nice the way I said it. I said, well, depends what you want me to do. What are you asking me to do? And he just said, will you help us? And I said, I'll think about it. Usually I don't think about it. I go straight for it. I have instincts on these things. And they never came back. Nothing happened. That all stopped. Stopped right there for that situation. I don't know what I would have been doing next. But I do know that for a long time now, apart from taking platform on church, have developed different attitudes towards spiritual people. And regularly, they come looking for my help. They're saying they'll do with any medium who has enough ability to help them move on. Now, I've been sitting in a church not many weeks ago, and the mediums, two ladies, were on a platform, and they'd just come in and put their handbags down and stood at the platform. I was sitting with all the Joe Blogs. I was just like one of the troop. And while they're doing their work, talking to various people round about, I knew my attention was being drawn to one of the ladies' handbags. And I thought, well, why is this happening? And I started getting information about it. At the end of the evening, when they're all getting ready to go home, I went and spoke to this lady. And I said, you know, for a while I was getting drawn to your handbag, and I don't know what's in it, but is that your bag? And she said, no, I was carrying it from a friend, the other medium. Well, the other medium was somewhere else in the building. She wasn't close enough to tell her what I had found out. I said, so I told this pal of hers, there was someone trying to get information to the lady who had the handbag. It was a man who'd actually committed suicide. He knew her, and he said, he knew this woman who owned the handbag. And he said, no one should think badly of me. I just had enough. And the picture I got was, he took a header right out of a high-story flat. Out he went. That was it. He just had enough. Whatever pressures he had were too much for him. It'd gone on too long, and he wanted out. He just wanted out. And he just did it. He just went for it. And weeks later, these two ladies were back again, and I spoke to one of them, the one who was related to the guy who committed suicide. And she said, no, he never committed suicide. I said, he did. He admitted it. He did it. He didn't fall. No one pushed him. He actually went for it. He had enough. Do you not know what life was like for him? Oh, we knew he had problems, but it was nothing that serious. It was that serious. He took a header because he couldn't take any more. He'd had enough. And I don't think people who commit suicide should be brought down in society. If you've had enough, you've had enough. You know, and whether it's by taking pills or stepping out in front, maybe you don't want to go stepping out in front of a bus and scaring the pants off the bus driver or anything. But if you can do your own thing, and you need to, if you can't get help, or if you're not convinced that you can tell people anything, then that person needs some kind of big strong hand to help him or her, no matter what age they are, to find a link, a crutch, something, anything to help them keep a wee bit longer on the go, so we can give them help. That's all they're asking for. They just don't tell everybody. So you have to be aware of what's going on with people around about you. You might not, you probably won't see, if someone's determined, they will not, you can't stop them, because they'll just do it when you're not looking, sort of thing.
Alyson, if I just come to Alyson, you're in the same circle, obviously that's where you met Ian. Do you see spirits asking for help, or is that something that you haven't developed yet?
Yes, I do, and it's primarily children.
Oh, right, okay.
That come in to my environment, and they're a bit, they're not quite sure where they are. So I'll just look around somewhere and see a door and say to them, do you see that door over there? Just, if you go through there, somebody will get you and take you to where you're supposed to be. And that happens quite often.
This door that both you and Ian described, I was going to say, is it a suggestion of a door? You just say, there's a door, and it makes itself, or you actually physically see like a spiritual doorway that's already there?
It feels to me like I've created the door. Yeah. But I don't know if that's right. But it feels to me like I have the thought of that would be a good place for a door, and then the door emerges.
Right, like a hunch type of thing.
Kind of, yeah. And I don't know if that's how it works, but that's how it feels. And then the door's created, and then I'll know who's on the other side, because I've also I've got quite a close communication with the angels. So I'll always have asked that these people are protected as well. We've got cats running about here, by the way, because you hear any noise.
Cats will be cats.
You ever get people who go through the door and then come back and say thank you?
Disaster.
Oh, hang on, we got two at once. Sorry, Andy was asking a question, I think, to Ian, was it?
Yeah. So, do you ever get situations where people go through the door and then they come back to you maybe later on to say thank you? Do you ever get that situation?
Yes. That happened to when I was down at a friend's family down in Ayr, and husband and wife and three children, and it was girls. They were all girls, but young girls. I think the youngest one was maybe about 3 or 4, and up to about 7 or 8 sort of thing. The other 2 girls were about in that age bracket, and the girls used to say to their mum, "We don't like going into this bathroom, and we got a feeling there's someone watching us." Now, they're very young at that age. Children they're so close to where we came from originally, quite honestly. They're so close to an environment that was better than the one on this material plane. And that's why they're so open and innocent, because no one ever did them any harm. They were enjoying company of their own people of their own age, children of their own age. And that's why so many children, when they're very young, have what we call friends, spirit friends of their own age, because their children they're seeing mentally or with their own physical eyes someone of their own age, so they recognise, as we would recognise a person when we leave our body. It's not meant to be a shock. They've still got the memory of where they came from, right? That blossoms until someone says, "Well, you're 5 years old now, you're going to school, you won't be doing that so much, we'll give you things to read." And then you get to 10 or 12 and you're out playing football or whatever it happens to be, or girls are playing hockey, or fashions, and these things start to change you. But the thing is that if you've got children like that, like the friends down in Ayr, they told me about this. Our mother used to come. The mother used to come and be in my circle. She come up from Ayr. There's a lot of people, 20 odd people in that group, and I got to know them fine. I still know them to this day. Still know them all today. All the daughters are grown up. They've had children now, so I'm a granddad sort of figure to them. And I went down, and they said, "We've got this problem," and blah 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 blah. And I said, "Okay." I said, we'll have tea and coffee and biscuits and blah blah blah. We'll have a chat, and I'll go and do it later. I don't want to bother right now. And had all that, and I said, "I'm going to the loo, wash my hands, have a pee, whatever it was, right?" And as I'm washing and drying my hands, I have a feeling there's someone behind me. Now, they're not close, but I know they're there. My mind's eye swivel rounds, and in a corner, there's a man standing, and he's quite nervous, and he's a bit pale looking and drawn, and he's got this coat wrapped around him. It's a bit too big for him, but he's holding it close. And I just said in simple terms, "Hello, who are you? How you doing?" Right? Dead simple stuff. Nothing heavy, nothing gushy. "How are you doing?" Dead simple. And he says, "Can you see me?" I said, "Yeah, how are you keeping? You in the house? These are my friends in this house. Did you quite like being here?" I start off a normal conversation as if it is somebody that I've just known, I've just met, but it's not in any way back or pushy. And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, how come you're here then?" He said, I got his life story at that point. He'd been a loader all his life, didn't have very, very few friends, and eventually died. And he must have got a hold of probably one of the, not a hold of, but came with one of the daughters, or came with the adult female, Sammy down in there, right? And just stayed in the house. And I said, well, why are you doing that? He says, well, I never had a family. I never got married. I just want to find out what it's like, you know. Genuine answer. No lies, no makeup, anything like that. I said, well, look, you know, the girls are here, they're very young. And they do get upset. They've got an inkling that you're there. They can't see you. I can see you and we can talk to each other. But they don't know this stuff. They're very, very young. Let me go and ask them, their mum and dad, if it'd be okay if you stayed here. But if you do, you don't ever get close to them. You never let them feel you. Keep a distance. Understand what's going on with families. There's good times, there's not so good times, there's lots of laughter, there's many tears. All these things that you have in a close environment. I said, but if you don't get in the way and cause problems, I'll ask them in any case, would they let you stay? Would you let them stay, that guy stay? And I went back in and I sat down and I said, I found the person who's been upsetting the girls. And Sammy said, well, who is it? What is it? And why? And all the usual questions. I said, this is a load of this guy. And he never had a big family, and he never had the opportunity to get in touch with people. He was a bit too reclusive, too afraid to ask, to join in a group, or just walk straight in and say, hello, everybody, how are you doing? I'm here. What are you doing? Shake me by the hand, you know, let's go for a pint later on, or anything. None of that happened. That happened to us. We're okay. This guy stuck out on a limb, his back. And he's fortunate he's been in the right place. And I was fortunate enough to be the one to get him to leave. Because I did ask Sammy and her husband what he says. And I've already spoken to him, the do's and don'ts. And I said, and Sammy's got a heart like size of an elephant. She's a big-hearted lady. I said, but I'm not making a decision. You have to make the decision. You have to tell me, yes, you let them in. Now I've explained it all. Or if you feel it's too much for the girls and too much for yourself, just tell me and I'll pass the information on. And they looked at each other and said, yeah, well, yeah. You know, as long as he doesn't upset the children. And I said, that's fine. I didn't even get off the seat. I just sat where I was and sent a message to them. They agree. They agree to let you stay. But remember, you don't upset the children. You don't cause any problem. Just see how they grow. Be part of the family. I only see these people about once every year at the most. I'm too lazy to drive down to here. Right, I've got too many other things to do. And about a year later, I was back down and seeing them and chatting away and talk. And use a cup of tea, back into the loo, washing the hands, boom. And this is a year later, or thereabouts, someone behind me. And I turn round, mind's eye turns round. Here's the guy there with the coke on himself, the long face, not happy. And I said, I thought you'd gone. And then he just stood up. I swear to God, he looked like an angel. Mm-hmm. Long white coat, big smile in his face. His hair was clean. He stood up straight. And he just nodded and smiled and disappeared. Now I went and told Sammy. And that was it. But that's called rescue. And I've done that so many times. And not just with individuals. I've got a thing about history and geography. And every time I go abroad, or even down south anywhere, if I'm in an area where there might be historical of interest to me, something will happen. And at one time, I was staying in Yorkshire anyway. And I was at one of these places where there'd been, oh, don't shoot him.
I think the cat wants to work.
She's going to shoot the cat. Anyway, and it was one of these Civil War places in 1700s or 1600s or something like Charles I, Charles II, something like that. And I'm sitting in the car. I'm still in the car. And someone came to the car on my right side and he just looked at me. This guy was dressed as a farmer. Lank hair, gone, 4 days shaving. He should have had 4 days shaving on him, but he was dark. The clothes were definitely not of our century. And he said, can you help me? Now, this is normal, right? This is all hand on heart. This is normal for me. I don't freak out because I've had to have this happen too many times. And I said, yeah, what do you want? He said, over the other side of that field there, I want you to help them. And I thought, well, okay. I didn't know what to expect. I swear, hand on heart, I levitated. My mind levitated right through the roof of the car, right up about another 20 or 30 feet. The field was flat as far as I can see when I was sitting in the car, but there was a shallow dip. And then it slowly rose back up again. In that hollow, people involved in those battles, both sides, whether it was Roundheads and the other ones, what they call them?
Cavaliers.
Men, women, children, young, old, soldiers, sailors, tinkers, tailors, all of that, a whole bunch of them. And they're sitting by little campfires, looking completely depleted. They had no idea of what was expected of them, and they had no intuition to do anything. And I knew what he wanted. He wanted me to have those ones sent to the other side. And I just, in my head, said, will someone come and collect all these people? They're lost, they need help, we need guides for them. Please approach them in your own way as you analyse them and take them away. And I just left it at that. Now, whether it ever happened or not, I don't know. But I made the effort to make something happen. Now, this is regular. I was going to talk about the Zeebrugge disaster, which was the very first time I ever did anything that was like that. Can I continue?
Yeah, we're coming up to a break in about 5 minutes. So if it's a 5-minute one, that'd be fine. If it's
I'll make it 4 minutes for you.
Okay. All right, cool.
By the time I was well established in psychic work, I had an out-of-body experience. It was to do with the Zeebrugge disaster.
If we just remind listeners about what the Zeebrugge disaster was, that was 1987, wasn't it?
It's about that, yes.
Yeah, which was a ferry from...
ferry turned over.
Yeah.
And it was all hell to pay there. And I found myself inside this boat, upside down. All the chairs were hanging from the ceiling, as far as I was concerned. And I'm up to my waist in water, but I'm just floating through it. You know, I mean, these things don't affect you. It's your mind that's getting the stuff, not your body. Your body's still having a sleep or doing whatever it is you're doing. As I'm wading through this, I see a little girl sitting on a staircase, as it's meant to be, but it's upside down. And she's got a little doll, and she's crying her heart out, and she's looking for her mummy and daddy. And I just up and I lifted her up, and I started talking to her. Oh, I like your dolly. What's your dolly's name? Very ordinary, reasonable things you talk to a child about. And she started to respond, and I said, and where's your mummy and daddy? Are they outside? She said, I can't find them. I said, well, we'll go and find your mummy and daddy. How about that? And she said, can you do that? I said, oh, yes, I'm doing it. So I'm already thinking ahead, and I'm saying to any spirit person that's around me, because they know by now what I can do and what I want to do. And they put me in these positions for these things to happen. And I said, we're going up here. So I'm looking up this reversible staircase. And I noticed that in this, what would be the ceiling, there's a slight, a beam of light coming through 4 sides. Much to say, an attic, you go into your attic, you see the door there. And I lift this girl up, and I lift this door thing, I lift it a little bit, and a hand comes out. And I say to the girl, you go with this nice person, they're going to go and get your mum for you, so don't worry about it. Okay? And she says yes. Thank you very much. Are you coming? I said, not right now, no, along someday. You know, I just left it at that. And as I put it down, I thought, I'm going to take a chance. And I lifted my view up a little bit to look inside the view, whatever would be when you look through this heavenly door, as it were, right? And it was grass, but it was pure white. And the light of it almost blinded me. That's all it was. Grass, tiny little blades of grass, but pure white, dazzling. So I just came back down. As I'm going down the stairs, I see in the water the body of the young girl.
Wow. Just before we go to our break, I'm intrigued at the fact that they're asking you, a person in the physical, the spirit
Yeah.
people coming to you to say, can you help rescue this spirit? Why don't the spirits just directly take them? Why do they have to intervene through a human channel, as it were?
It's part of the thing to do with the human who is in two places. Human beings are very valuable. You've got your material body, you've got a spiritual body. That spiritual body can do anything that's spiritual. The physical body can do anything that's physical, right? To get the two together and marry them so that they can work with each other. You know, my body, I want it to go over there so the body stands up and it goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to see through that door because there's someone there. My mind shows me the door and the other person comes through to me or I go through to them. Human beings are very, very valuable. And this is why, because there's good guys in spirit and there's the bad guys. And the bad guys want you to manipulate you to do bad things or stupid things because they get a high on it. And there's a chain of command as well. The good guys want you to keep your life on the straight where you know what you're doing, not succumb into maybe not temptations, but you're not going to become something like an alcoholic or a person who takes lots of drugs and kill people or even kill yourself. Because once you leave that human body, that's your character. You're a normal person or a very good person, or you could be permanently damaged by things in your life, right? The guy that was in the toilet, he just never got out. He never broke loose. That's why human beings are so very valuable. Both sides want them. The dark and the light wants them, and we have to make up. If we just behave normally and think, I don't want to get too, I like my pints, that sort of thing. I'm not getting bloated every night, and all it does is make me ill. But I don't want to create any habits of that kind. Mm-hmm. We are extremely valuable. When we realise what we can do, we can accomplish things that are within our limits, both physically and spiritually and psychically.
Okay.
Is that your 4 minutes up?
Yeah, that is. Yeah, we're about to go to a break now. Thank you so much for the moment, Alyson and Ian. We're talking to mediums Alyson and Ian Dunlop Shane, or Shane Dunlop, or Dunlop Shane.
Dunlop Shane.
Whichever you prefer, which way that is. Speaking from Scotland. We'll be back in a minute. Just before we go to the break, I'll just explain. It's going to be a slightly different break. I went last month. Where are we now? Yeah, so maybe it was... let me think. July. I was at the Bases conference. So you can now view a special report that I made of one of the days at the Bases conference, which was in Wiltshire, at the Barge Inn in Wiltshire. And take a look at that, and we'll be back in about 15 minutes. Thanks for joining us.
No, I'm not in Bonnie, Scotland by a lock, but by a narrowboat on a canal. I'm here in Pewsey in the county of Wiltshire at the Barge Inn. Whilst its patrons are enjoying a pint outside or at the bar, in the corner of the newly refurbished barn, the 2021 Bases at the Barge conference is taking place. And after being locked down for a year and a half, alternative woken thinkers are taking their seats for the first speaker of the day, Birmingham UFO Group's Dave Hodrian, talking about alien abductions and screen memories. I asked Dave, what exactly was this phenomenon?
Yeah, well, with abductions and visitations and contacts, sometimes people won't see the beings or their craft in their true form. They'll see a kind of a masked image of certain kinds. So the beings will disguise themselves so they'll remember them as something else. Or sometimes people may see a craft in the sky, but they'll recall it as something else, such as an aircraft or helicopter. They probably deciding when they don't use it with people. There's plenty of cases on record, some which are quite traumatic, which don't appear to have screen memories. So obviously with Betty and Barney Hill, for example, they were quite traumatised by their experiences. They saw the beings as they actually were. Screen memories seem to be more prevalent in childhood, and obviously Betty and Barney Hill were grown up. But I've dealt with lots of cases, including adults who've had screen memories as well. So it seems a bit random. We don't really know exactly when it occurs and when it doesn't occur, and the reasons for that. A lot of the time they seem to focus on things that are specific to the individual, so it's almost like they reach into their mind, find something which is familiar to them or which they associate with, and use that as a screen. Not in all cases, but there's quite a few cases like that.
So is it kind of like it's almost a subduing of the thing, just to keep them still for whatever reason they want, rather than drugging them, they just kind of blowing bubbles like you would for a kid who's about to have an injection, that kind of thing.
Absolutely, yeah. I think there's numerous different explanations, and I went over those different explanations in my talk earlier on. But for me personally, I think it's something that the beings are doing directly. Now, there are multiple reasons why they might be doing that, largely maybe to reduce the trauma of the situation, but also they're acting covertly, so they're doing this on a worldwide level. And at the moment it's covert, as in they haven't landed everywhere and made themselves fully aware to the human race. So this may be to so that when people remember their experiences, they don't see the beings as they actually are, they describe seeing something else.
Okay. Any other alien races doing this, or is it just the Greys that are doing this?
Primarily it seems to be the Greys, but obviously if somebody doesn't recall seeing the actual being later on, and they just see and they remember the screen memory, we can work out there's a contact experience from everything else. So, for example, they might be aboard a craft that they don't recognise in a completely different location, but the screen memory remains through the whole experience. So they don't always remember it. They can sometimes get the memories come back through either flashbacks, daytime, or during sort of nighttime dreams, or when they're hypnotically regressed, sometimes you can break past the screen memory using that as well.
Okay, now Ronnie and Philip Kinsella, you're familiar with them. Now Ronnie had an experience many years ago, I think it was 1982 or 83 when he was a young child, and he said that he had a kind of doctor experience where these doctors wanted to perform an operation. They said it's absolutely necessary. Poor Ronnie was very terrified, and he said they appeared to have masks on at the time, and then later on, I can't remember the time difference, later on he did see an image of the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, there we go.
Floating in his room.
Yes.
So would you think that was a classic kind of screen memory?
Absolutely, yeah, and he's seen two different screen memories there. So in quite a lot of cases, people report seeing doctors, and they may see them as human doctors in face masks and normal doctor gear, and sometimes the whole surroundings can be like a hospital as well, and we're aware that they haven't been to hospital and it's a contact experience. Cheshire Cat, so in some cases with screen memories, people see fictional characters such as cartoon characters, and that's a classic example there. And it's very likely that he was interested in that book as a child, knew what the Cheshire Cat looked like, and that was how they presented themselves to him.
Now sometime after that episode, and I can't remember the difference in time again what it was, he actually suffered a seizure at school, passed out. So whether the doctors had done something and that was the cause of the seizure, they were doing something to prevent further problems with him later on, and the seizure was the last thing of it, I don't know.
Yes.
Has that happened to other people?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. There certainly seems to be some level of protection with some of these experiencers who have contact, especially if they're getting repeat cases throughout their life. Numerous people have reported to me having experiences where they've been saved from harm, so where they might hear a telepathic voice in their head and they'll move out of the way of something, and then there's a car accident, this sort of thing. So it seems that they are protecting and looking after the people that are taking it. Now, whether that's for their benefit or for ours, we don't really know.
Hello, Bases at the Bar and Bases Project, hello. Yeah, it's great to see you all. Familiar faces, new faces. It's been so long, hasn't it? We've been separated, now we're back together.
Next up was regular conference speaker Ben Emlyn-Jones, who was pleased to be back in the saddle, presenting his talk, What is going to happen next? I asked Ben if it was a big crowd.
There's a huge crowd there. Everyone is like just happy to get out and about and mix again, be with our tribe, so to speak. We've missed each other. We haven't seen each other. There's been Zoom calls, but it's not the same. I myself, it's great to get back on a stage and talk to a live audience after so long of not being able to do it. I was a bit nervous, to be honest, and wondered if I still
what
had
was the
it.
subject you spoke about?
I gave some perspectives on what I think is going to happen in the near future based on the immediate past and the current events, which is not an easy thing to do. It's very much speculation, but I made some educated guesses of what I think might happen as a result of, for example, the UAP situation with the increasing transparency of ET or possible ET visitation of this planet. Of course, the scamdemic and everything associated with that, vaccination and other things. But I think I've done as good a job as I can to provide some answers to the question of which is the title of my talk, what is going to happen next.
So what is going to happen next, in your opinion, then?
I think that we will get more information on the UAP phenomenon. That's coming, but probably from other countries as well as the United States. There's a definite pattern that seems to be emerging, a pace that has been set, and it shows no signs of slowing down. What has already been released, I think, it's something that is going to automatically demand further questions. I don't think it really can be shut down now. There's too much information out there already to prevent people asking the necessary questions for further answers and more information.
And do you think the coronavirus pandemic, if it's a scandemic, is connected in any way to disclosure in any way?
It is, yes, because indirectly, because both these things, I think, are acts of strategy. And in the case of the COVID-19 pandemic, I think it's an excuse the government are using to exercise their authoritarian muscles, hyper-regulate the economy, control our life, put us all into situations where we can have everything dictated to us, remove cash from circulation and from the economy, things like this. The UAP situation appears to be the opposite of that. There appears to be a very, very powerful force at work now, which is fighting against that. And it's quite senior. It may involve people who were formerly part of the New World Order, so to speak. That is, people within the military and within the state who are now working against that agenda. I hope that's true. I really do. It does. All indication is that that's actually what's happening.
So it's two fractions fighting against each other, perhaps.
That's the most likely explanation. That best explains the events happening in the world, in my view. Yeah.
Current COVID regulations permitted up to 50 people per day over the 3-day conference. Whilst COVID lockdowns affected everyone else, organiser Miles Johnston has continued throughout the so-called pandemic.
We've never stopped.
Never stopped, even during the lockdown. You went
no, that's
online.
the point. We got a conference away last July.
Yeah.
We did it all in the studio.
Yeah.
And if this was going to continue, we set this conference at the June 21st lockdown level, which meant we only take 50 people because everybody's sitting at round tables.
Yeah.
And because we knew that due to the way that the biology works with the vaccines and with the way that the things are going to work, things are going to start picking up in the 21st of June. Mm-hmm. So we knew they would then lie about that, get everybody's hopes up, con everybody, because the strategy they're using is from the art of war. You make people think they're winning and then you hit them hard. Right. And that's what they're doing all the time, and that's in the Lockstep report, which goes back 2010, where they planned all this. Right? Okay. So the point with this was to get a small audience, get the minimum, you get people living and meeting and doing what they're doing now. They're all talking to each other, they're actually seeing each other. So that's the whole point of doing this. So whilst the in-house numbers, I've been hit hard on YouTube, so I can't upload anything. I can risk uploading on my other YouTube channels, but basically YouTube's finished in terms of any creative, forward-thinking product. So the idea is to try and find somewhere else.
Let's engage with the energy.
Crowds were also pleased to see the welcome return of Tony Toppin.
I've looked down the barrel of the gun of the UFO cover-up. I know what's going on, but some of it I cannot talk about for my own sake. I can't talk about some of it in public.
I asked ex-BBC reporter Gemma Cooper how she was adjusting to life in the alternative scene.
I'm open to all of it now, and what I have learned through what happened to me with my dramatic exit from the BBC, being roundly demonised, the only person that's ever happened to apart from me is David Icke, so at least I'm in good company. But I've learned through my conscious awakening and through being involved in these circles, it's much better to surrender and let the universe take you where it wants to go. So I'm open to all of it, and still my real field is the multidimensional aspect of humans and human consciousness, and where we go at night, we're on the astral plane. Dreams are much more than dreams, and that still is my natural kind of love for this subject, because we're so much more powerful than we realise. And a lot of stuff that's being talked about today and through the weekend at base is about contact with extraterrestrial beings. I prefer to think of them as multidimensional. And I've had my own contact experience with beings when I was in a very high vibration state, when I've been doing a lot of yoga, a lot of meditation. That's when I saw my first UFO. That's when my nighttime experiences with shadows and silhouettes, like one of our speakers talked about earlier, were in my bedroom. It was quite frightening. But it was because I was very high vibration at that point, and I was eating a very clean diet, I was living a very clean lifestyle. So it's still, the dots kind of all connect. Once you realise you're multidimensional consciousness, you realise there are other beings that are multidimensional consciousness, and we can communicate with them. If we get out of our 3D matrix and the ego and what am I going to have for tea, and I haven't paid my gas bill, yeah, that's valid, we live in this world, but also we're so much more than that. So still for me it's how powerful we are as humans and how radiant and brilliant we are. This woman has a lot of things to say.
As the Saturday's events reached their end with speaker Sophia Green, Dave Hodrian still had a few cards up his sleeve.
Okay, yeah, so for a number of years I've been working behind the scenes on a card game entirely themed on the UFO subject. So let's have a look inside the box of UFO Wave. So you see it's got this flip-top lid and the instruction manual are themed like a top secret document. And up here, this is our mascot, and if you can zoom in on that, this is our alien mascot, who I've named Bob. And I've tried to keep things as streamlined as much as possible. So even if you don't really have an interest or play that many card games, you should be able to pick it up quite well. Okay, so I've opened up the lid of the box and we've got the 2 stacks of cards in there. In the final version, there's going to be a bit more space. These ones were right up to the lid. So let's have a look at what we've got. This is one of the species cards, and this is the mantids. So you can see there the detailed cartoon artwork that the artist has done for the game. Let's see who's next. I don't know who we're going to get. Oh, there we go, the greys.
The famous greys.
So these are the species you actually play as in the game. So it's you against both your opponents, who are other alien species out there trying to perform the same activities. This card's called the Scan. And what it represents is cards that are actually out there in the area. It's what you can see from the windows of your craft. And there's a number of different types of things you'll find on the Scan. The first of those is activities. And there's a particular activity. This one is recon. So with this one, essentially looking at the ground terrain of the area.
So when can we see this game on the market?
Okay, so I'm planning to release the game via Kickstarter, the crowdfunding website. I don't have the money up front to make the game, so I'm reaching out to both the UFO community and the gaming community to back the game, and then the money will be collected. I'll manufacture in bulk, and I'll be shipping it out. We're aiming, the Kickstarter goes live on the 29th of this month, 29th of July at midday.
Hopefully we can attend many more basis conferences as well as other conferences around the UK. But if we're locked down again, I guess we can all play UFO Wave to keep us occupied. It's Neil Geddes-Ward at the Basis Conference in Pewsey, Wiltshire.
Welcome back to the Paranormal Peep Show on the Paranormal UK Radio Network, where we're talking to Alyson Dunlop Shanes and Ian Shane about mediumship. They're in psychic developing circles. They teach other mediums how to do the stuff. And I thought we'd come back in with a question that I was keen to find out in part 1, but we never actually got to it, was how did you both start off on this field of mediumship and psychic development? I mean, were you both naturally psychic, or is it something you just wanted to try and fine tune and see where it went?
Let's start.
Oh, okay. I had no interest and no knowledge of psychic work. Well, I think one of my grandparents on one side of the family had been doing this sort of thing, but I was about 4 years old when I heard about that sort of thing. Because they took me to a spiritualist church once. I had a little bit of a skin problem. But after that, I never had any interest in it. They never mentioned anything to me. And it wasn't until 1982, I think, something like that, that one night, a bunch of friends of mine, and guys and girls sort of thing, and the women wanted to go and have messages, as they call it, right? And they dragged everybody, all their pals along, the boyfriends, husbands, all the rest of it. And I was there, I was one of them. And it was about 6 of us. And it was in the West End of Glasgow. And it was a very well-known lady, an elderly lady, who lived up that area. and had this group going, and I went along, and I was one of our group that got a message, and it was a piece of advice. I can't even remember what it was, but it was interesting how I thought how the medium who didn't know me could actually discuss these sort of things. But I never thought much about it again after that. But a few weeks later, everyone wanted to go back again, and I was duly drawn into it, and I went along. And that time, I think the term is you get blown out of the water, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what happened to me. Whatever it was they said, and I can't remember it now, struck me so hard as how can somebody who has never seen me in my life, a complete stranger to me, can be so detailed in parts of my life that nobody knows anything about. At that point, I said, I want to find out about this. And that's where it started. Mm-hmm. And I went into the development circle, quite big, and I knew nothing about anything. Absolutely nothing. I didn't know about spirit work. I didn't know who spirit were. I had no idea of these sort of things. And gradually, over the years, and it must have taken a good 4 years, 3-4 years anyway, I began to find my feet. And now I was treated like anybody else in the group. I was just another face, another name. I was given no preferential treatment. We were all treated very well, and they were all very sociable. And I became one of the group. That was all it was to it. But things started to change pretty quickly, certainly within the 2 to 3 years. And I started to take. I was encouraged to take platform, and I was a rookie, as they say. And there was 4 people who were rookies to go up on the platform. And the wee lady who was in charge, she said, well, introducing whoever they were. And we were given 3 minutes or something to do something. And there was 2 guys before the break, 2 guys after. And I was one of the ones of the other 2 who was going to be up second. And the guy who was sitting beside me said, how do you feel? And I said, oh, okay. But I had noticed, because by this time I knew I could feel when a person was close to me, a spirit person was close to me. It wasn't very difficult to ascertain. I just felt different, you know. And I was very chilled, very relaxed. And this guy was very nervous. He was very nervous. And he did his bit. And I was cool. I wasn't being sort of arrogant in some kind of way. I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea. I just trusted them. They put exercises in front of you to see how you'll react. And I'll tell you about one of them later on, I would think, just a wee bit. But I stood up, and as I stepped forward to the lectern, I felt my guide go back, and I thought, what next? And then I felt someone come forward, and I just, boom, hit the nail on the head. 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. It wasn't, I've got a name, James. For anyone got a name, got a friend or a relative called James in spirit. I was nailing the people. I was looking right at them, that one, and then the stuff would just start to flow. Only took about 30 seconds, a minute at the most, to speak to each person, and then I just went back and sat down.
Wow.
Come as you like. But that depends on the teachers that are with you, right? They know how you are. They've probably known you before you even set foot on this planet. They know you, really. And plans will be made ahead so that if you go in certain directions, there's always someone there to help you do whatever you want to do. And they'll even show you things you've never thought about doing. All I ever got when I was at to do at school. Read, write, and add up. When I got to secondary school, there was nothing in there. I wasn't interested in athletics. I wasn't interested in the sciences, the arts, nothing. All I wanted to do was watch television and read a book. I had no interest in anything. Absolutely no interest at all. No, I wasn't interested. And but that was it. I just took off from that point of view, do a little bit of platform work, and that's how it started for me. Now, it would be a lot different for other people, I'm sure. I'm sure they are. We're not the same, and we're not in competition, because that's one thing that really I found very strange. But human beings are human beings. If someone can do something better than Joe Bloggs over there, they get a little bit nippy. How come this new person on the scene here, and he's doing this and that and that and that, and he can talk about all these things and he can see all these things, and a lot of them take umbrage. They really do. You're not supposed to do that, you know. We're the older ones here. We should be doing it. And I vied with nobody. I just gave off what I got. And a lot of the stuff was literally for me in the early days. Sitting in a chair, and I see my awareness leaves me. It goes about where my head would be if I was standing up, and it's looking down at me, and I'm sitting in the chair, and this enormous snake came round, and it wrapped itself right round me. It was white and gold, right round it, all the way. When it got to my chest, I said to my guide, because there's always someone there, I didn't have to know their names. I said, is this thing going to hurt me? And I heard, a laugh. Oh, what's going to happen next? And I just sat there. And as it came up behind me, the head, it was a cobra, and the hood opened right up, right above my head, the hood. Now, I've since discovered a wee bit about previous lives with me, and that is very significant. The cobra of Egypt is very significant in my life. But that was then, but that was one of the first things I ever saw. But always just a case of sitting, doing nothing. Let them come to you. Don't put it aside. Don't think you're having a daydream, you're fanciful. You're getting what they're offering you. Accept it. Okay, accept it. You might not understand it, but accept it. You can always talk to someone. I used to go and talk to my teacher and say, I saw this and I saw it, I don't understand it. You know, and then she'd look at me and nod, and walk off and leave me. I'm the one that's supposed to figure out what's going on in my life, right? This is the whole idea. You have to figure out who you are, yourself, your talents, your abilities, all that's there for you to do these things. And that's just the way it started with me. It went from stage to stage. I was becoming involved with other sorts of people who were doing the same sort of thing. They were either more experienced than me, but inviting me along to groups. And also all sorts of things that were going on. But it was all very much a learning experience. There's a place down in Stansted that was a hall, a massive hall.
Arthur Findlay College.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I went down there twice. Terrific. Gordon Higgins used to run the place at one time, named Higgins or Higginson, something like
Higginson.
that.
Gordon
and he
Higginson.
ran that place.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't know him. I've never met him in my life, but I'm sitting in a group there one weekend or something, or a week where it was. And he's coming off the platform and he's looking at everybody and talking to them. And then he got close to me and he looked at me. And then I heard my guide say to him, I actually heard him say to him, he says, leave him alone. And Gordon Higgins' eyes went straight up in the air and he walked right by me. Right by me. Because the ones I was with were, I didn't know much about myself really until much later in life. And I hadn't formed this idea of what my identity is and what I can do and what I can't do. But some people will take a rank beginner like me under their wing, but they will work with them to do work in a specific certain way. My life, I've found out, is to be doing one thing, and that's my way, and that's it. I offer no explanation as to why it is. I just do it. I don't avoid people, and I don't try and manipulate. I say, this is my life and what I've seen, what I've done. Now you've got to go and do the same about your own life. Discover your own teachers. your own guides. Follow your own path. I'm just breaking the ice for you. You've got to fill in all the cracks in the pavement or anything. You've got to do that yourself. That's where I started from. And it's gone on for decades. It's really type stuff can go on. You don't have to ask for someone to, they just turn up.
Yeah. But was it the case for you, Alyson, that someone just turned up, or was you seeing things before you joined a circle?
No, I'd started getting involved in spiritualism quite some years before, when I was about 17, 18. And so it was quite some time before I went to a development circle. But I think what really kind of blew me away was when I saw somebody transfigure on the platform, and it became my uncle who had just died.
Can you explain for listeners what transfiguration is? I know what it is, but it'd be interesting for an explanation.
Okay, it's when the medium takes on the image, the form of the deceased,
like a mask,
the person who is
over their face.
Passed away. Yeah, it's like a mask, and it's like their face changes into that, you know. And the man was built like him and started walking like him and started taking on the facial appearance of him. And it was just my uncle there. And he said to me, this is the way the man's... First of all, after he transfigured, and then he said, I don't mean to make fun of anyone, but this is how he's walking, and started walking like him. And that just sent shivers up my spine, because I thought, it's my uncle. Wow. That is him standing there. You know, and that I didn't need much more proof than that. And so I started going to an awareness group at that point, with the Spiritualist Union in Glasgow. They've got an awareness group every week, or they had before COVID. And so I went there for a little while, and I also got involved at one point in... I should, just to pick up on what Ian said there definitely is in these groups, not necessarily that one, but in some circles, this sort of cliquey jealousy sort of thing. You get that vibe of, you know, you could be quite good, and I'll just keep you at that level, at this level just now. And so I kind of stopped going to the awareness group there, and I started going to another circle. And again, something similar happened. And I had got on really well the first week, but the woman who ran it wasn't there the first week. And what we were doing was a little bit of meditation, and then the room was like in twilight, you know, it was like twilight, and it was quite an old house that we were in, so there was a real atmosphere. And I sort of saw the outline of this enormous black figure. And one of the girls across from me turned round and saw this figure as well. So I knew that she had seen it, and it wasn't just me, because our face fell. And there was images of, this was actually a message for me. I got images of, to do with witchcraft. And I realised that the figure that I was seeing was Hecate. And she quite often appears for me, because she also is somebody who can go between worlds. So she sometimes appears for me to help me, like as a guide, to help me get messages.
Was she in a human form, or?
No, she wasn't. It was. I just generally see a black outline.
Right. Okay.
That's generally all I see. But it's more that I know that energy is Hecate.
Yeah.
manifesting, trying to help. And so after that, we each took a turn sitting in the circle, in the centre of the circle. And immediately, because I didn't really know that much about what to do, but immediately I started getting things, and it was almost like going round in a clockwork. You know, when I would say something, somebody would say, I can take that. I'd say something else, the next person would say, I can take that. And this went on and on and on. Well, this success was relayed to the lady in charge. And the following week she was there, and she kept interrupting me at every opportunity whenever I started speaking and getting a message. And then I would go into something else, and she would interrupt me and tell me, no, that's not how you should be doing it. And some people are like that. They don't just like, in Ian's circle, he'll say, now just get what you get, and then we all talk about it at the end. And you see what you see, and it's come to you for a reason. You see it for a reason, and he'll never interrupt you in that way, because it's really off-putting to do that. And as a result, I didn't go on very well. Because a lot is to do with confidence as well. And if you're, starting to get stuff, and somebody keeps doing that, then your confidence comes back down. So I didn't go back to that circle. And it was a shame, because I had been getting on quite well.
I find with circles, there's very different energies with different circles, and indeed the kind of circle leaders and the type of people that attend them, very different.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
This is why you have to keep searching it out for the right blend of people.
You do.
Right.
I've been in some wonderful circles, but I've also been in ones where they're just full of egomaniacs, and all they want to do is kind of be the big medium, and I'm just not interested in it.
Yeah. With the Hecate, just to explain for people that don't know, Hecate, as I understand it, because I've had sort of connections with that name of Hecate, it would be described as a pagan goddess. Would you agree with that?
Yes, she's a Greek goddess of the underworld, who can help you with things like necromancy is one thing, so that's talking to the dead. So in pagan terms, necromancy and spiritualism are fairly closely linked.
Pretty much the same side, either side of the coin, really, aren't they?
It's pretty much the same thing. So if you go to Hecate to ask her to help you talk to spirit, then she will, if you have a strong enough connection. And Ian has actually given me messages before, not knowing that I did have this connection, telling me about the old lady who's your guide, who stands at the gate, and things like stands at the door, stands at the gate, things like that. He said to me before, and I knew exactly who it was that he was talking about. So,
getting back to your uncle, the transfiguration, when you said you saw the face of your uncle, was that in infrared light, or was it just a dimmed room, like you talked about subdued lighting before?
No, it was like this.
Just normal lighting.
Yeah, just normal lighting, and it was actually, of all the places to have a spiritualist meeting, I remember it was in a Catholic primary school.
Wow.
in the hall in the evening. I found that really odd. But
and they gave permission for that to happen, presumably.
They must have done. They must have done.
Those secret naughty Catholics.
I know. It's just quite strange, but that's where it was. And I've never seen this medium again. And I didn't even take note of his name at the time, so I've got no idea who he was. It's a shame.
Because I've seen Transfiguration. Well, I say I've seen. I went to a demonstration of Transfiguration, but it was done under the conditions that you would expect to be for a physical seance, in the sense of almost like materialization type of expectation. So all the windows were blacked out, and anything where light might leak through was covered up with tape or gaffer tape or something. And they had put two little glowing red lights on the medium, and supposedly that he was going to transfigure into someone. And there's about 20 of us there, a couple of people I was in a circle with at the time, and we all watched. And he would lean into these lights, so the beam shot in, almost like the Christopher Lee films, where you get the light coming up from below and you get that spooky look on the face. And of course, it creates shadows that you don't normally see in your everyday life, because all the shadows are distorted because the light's coming from underneath. So you get that horror look. But, you know, I looked and people were going, oh, look at that change. And I was thinking, I can't see a damn thing here. And I kept saying, well, when we had a break, the guide speaking through this medium would say, does anyone have any questions? And I was still kind of a bit skeptical of the whole thing. I said, well, yeah, can you bring anyone through? And he said, yes, I can. He says, come here, my friend. So basically, I sat right opposite him, was invited to sit right opposite him, and I had to hold his hands. He asked me to hold his hands, the medium's hands, but the guide coming through him. And he said, I feel a gentleman here. And I thought, okay, that's good. I'm hoping for a gentleman to come through, that a friend of mine that passed on, maybe it's him. And he leant forward into the light. And I looked, and I could see people. They were standing behind me, and they were going, oh, look, the nose is getting bigger, or the ears are getting bigger. And I was watching, I thought, I can't see a damn thing. I thought, what's going on here? I just can't see a damn thing. So I thought, well, I'll be honest. I said, I'm really sorry, but I can't see anything. So he says, I'll try again. So he moved out the light, and then he came back into the light again. And then some people were going, oh, yeah, look at that. And I thought, I still can't see anything. Is it where I'm sitting or what? And I said, I felt really awkward. I said, I'm so sorry, I can't see anything. She says, well, try one more time, my friend. So he leant out of the light, and then he came back in again. And again, I heard people still going on saying, yeah, I can see changes. And I thought, I'm not going to pretend I can see something. I'll just have to say, I'm so sorry, I can't see anything. And he goes, thank you, my friend. He said to the lady, I won't say her name. He said to the lady who organised this little sit-in, he said, could you make sure our friend here gets a full refund? And she goes, yes, I will, to the spirit guide. But I never did. I never got a refund. So I always say that the spirit world owes me 20 quid.
Why were you getting the full refund? Or why were you supposed to get the full refund?
Well, because they were charging me for something. I understand it's an experiment. And I kind of understand that. But I wasn't asking for a refund.
Yeah,
I was just
can't work out.
I was just going to say, okay, sorry, I can't see it. And I would have sat back in, at the back and let someone else take a turn, sort of thing. I wasn't looking out for a refund, and I wouldn't have pushed for one. And I didn't push for it. But I always got, the spirit world sort of offering a refund.
What if you were given like a spirit £20 note that kind of
a receipt or something
that just kind of disappears as you grab it?
I could claim back of it the next time I go and see someone else. Say, can I cash this in, please, or something. But I found it interesting that supposedly, I mean, I've had people. My ex-wife said that she could see a spirit transfigure over my face. And I was practicing channeling, and she said she could see a man that had sideboards, supposedly a Victorian guide that was working with me at the time called Henry. And she had a torch at the time, and she could see something shimmering over my face. And so she couldn't quite clearly see it. So she put her hand over the torch, and then she said she saw this man's face over my face. And every time I spoke in trance, suddenly the face synchronized, and it spoke as well. The mouth opened at the same time I opened my mouth. Now, I've since recently read that apparently transfiguration is, when mediums do it, it's always a prelude to a development or a stage of development that you'd eventually, if you carried on in that direction, you'd go on and do physical mediumship. So potentially, maybe with the right training, I could have perhaps gone on to do physical mediumship. I don't know, but it was an interesting idea that I read about. Is that anything that any of you guys seen as physical mediumship?
Well, it's been mentioned to me because a very well-known lady in Glasgow in the 40s and 50s, Helen Duncan.
Oh, yes, Helen Duncan, yeah.
And somebody from the platform said, oh, what do you know about Helen Duncan? And I didn't know, I didn't even know a person called Helen, never mind Duncan. I said, no, I have no idea. But it never came to anything. I mean, maybe I should have taken the hint like yourself and moved on. But you get so many options about things. Everyone wants to be your buddy in spirit world. If you are willing to be patient, they will help you produce many sides of your character. And authors and artists, that sort of thing. Names were given to me, and I knew who they were, but I wouldn't really want to write anything. I'm very lazy, very lazy. If anyone wants to write, for decades, I've had people saying, you should write a book. And I thought, nah, you could write the book, but I don't want to. I want to have the fun. I want to have the adventures. I want to have the travel. I want to have those experiences. I don't want to get bogged down with keeping little notes all the time. Thank you very much. I want to get on and do the busy. You can write the stuff. Fine. You can have the credit. Fine. I just want to get on with it. It's very straightforward for me. Very straightforward. But yes, I've had opportunities to do these things. And I have, when you were talking about the trance stuff, I don't think I've actually, well, I think something happened once. I don't know if you'd call it trance. We're in circle, again, when I'm still learning. And we're all standing up and giving off our information as it goes. And it got to my turn, and this voice came out of me, and I knew it wasn't mine. The words weren't mine, and he just boomed right out and talked for about, not very long, maybe about 10 or 20 seconds max, absolute max, and then stopped. And I got a lot of funny stares, but I don't know why it happened to me. I've no idea who did it, but there was someone there to emphasize a point. And we're told we are instruments. That's a term the spiritualists use. I'm an instrument. That's true. I was an instrument that night for sure, for absolute sure. Somebody came through and this voice brought out this stuff. It was strong, it was deliberate, but I don't know any more than that. I was very well aware that something was happening, and I just let my body stand there and do it. You know, that was it. But when it comes to transfiguration, that was one of the things I used to in previous circles. I'd try to get other people to do as well. Try all sorts of things. But there was a time when I was doing a charity thing, do for some church or other or whatever it was. And there was a woman who came up to put her money down and started talking to me. And I started telling her stuff. And it seemed all be going okay. And then I realized I've got to say something to this girl. And I said to her, just look at me. Just look at me. And she just started to look at me very closely. And I said, what do you see? And she said, my father, he died 2 years ago.
Wow.
And I didn't even feel it. I felt nothing. I just knew there was someone there, and I just let it happen. All that, for me to let it happen means I didn't do anything. They came through, not me. I didn't ask. They just came through.
And you didn't feel anything like cobwebs or anything on your face?
Cobwebs is a classic description, isn't it? I keep hearing this cobwebs thing. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I've heard that. But I felt something. I felt my hair sometimes getting touched lightly. I felt that.
Yeah.
But, you know, I just know it's them in any case. And I say, thank you. When I'm going about my daily business, I still keep in touch with them. I still think, oh, we're going to Edinburgh. Who wants to come? I treat them like my pals. I'm going to travel. Anything. And I get all sorts of information coming back. I get music in my head, Scottish pipe bands or Irish jigs, and I'm all for it. I'm up and bouncing by the time I leave this flat. And when I used to go to work, I worked for Bupa. I was an activities coordinator, and I'd bounce into that place, and the residents had just finished their breakfast, and I'd come in full of the joys of spring, and the nurses get really uptight. Will you stop that? You're upsetting the I said, I'm not. I'm here to do a job, and I have to get these boys and girls active, and I'll talk away to them and talk about all sorts of things, get them interested in laptops and computers and what's in the daily paper, and take them out and bring them back, and all sorts of things. That's what I'm there for. And I wasn't letting any damn nurse tell me what to do, because I had a boss and it wasn't a nurse. That was it. I got right in there. I didn't mess about. Yeah, you know. But certainly there was one situation where I was at I say this fundraiser, maybe there's another fundraiser, and there was 2 women. I was nearly finished talking to all these people in the room, maybe not many, 40 people or something like that. And I'm getting ready to wind up, and I said my last thing to somebody, blah, 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 over there about whatever. And I'm going to stop. I feel myself sort of relaxing a bit as if they're going back, and then suddenly, bang, they come forward again. And my eyes focused on the second row, 2 ladies at the end. One's about 50, the other one's maybe 30-ish. And I looked at the one about 30, and I started to tell her about a past life. I said, I see you as a young man in the American Civil War. You're wearing the grey uniform, and you're involved in a battle. The South are losing, and you bolt, you drop your rifle and you bolt, as anyone would do. That's actually what I said to her, as anyone would do, you know. I said, but you're running through a wooded area, and as you're running through, a branch hits you on the face and damages your eye. And I said, does this make any sense to you? And she says, yes, and I still have the eye complaint.
Wow.
One of you 2 guys will know that when you leave a spirit realm, you can frequently bring some form of signature back from that time to the present time. And this woman said, I still have it.
Wow.
She followed me, had a chat with me about it. But this happens. This happens. If you're opening yourself up and have an open mind, and you know what you want, what you don't want in life, they're willing to work with you. They're willing to work with you. They need people to discuss other things more than just simple things that we're talking about just now. There's the big issue coming up now. I mean, it's already it's on the planet. We know about the state of the world and the sea and the air and the idea that the empires are starting to build again. Americans, Russians, Chinese, Africans, they are building empires, these guys. That's what's happening. And these are issues that we should be interested in. But there's always the other thing that really catches people's imagination, or some people, ufology, aliens. Yes, I know about them. Reptilians, been there. You know, I've seen these things happen because they caught my attention as well. Anything you want to do, if you're going to stick at it, they'll be there to help you do it.
What have you seen that's ET related, Ian?
ET, oh, okay. First one. Out of body. Again, this is about 10 years ago. And I knew I was out of body. And I'm sitting on a seat in front of a board of, what do you call it? Persons, beings. It's like an interview. There's 4 of them there. I'm here, right? And there's several. I'm not sitting right opposite a table with them, a desk. I'm several yards back from them, from that table or that desk. They all had different heads. From the neck down, they all wore this white sort of coat, right? But they had different heads. And they asked one question, and it was all over in seconds. Tell us about human emotions. That was the question. Think how significant that is. That is pertinent to anyone who wants to know about humans. Because once they get that, they can start to find out how we react to certain situations. That's a big thumbprint and saying who and what you are.
It's quite a big question. It's quite a big question, actually, because when they say tell us about human emotions, it depends what context. You know, what's it's so varied. Human emotions are so wide and varied. What's the context of what they want to know specifically?
Well, they'll find that out. Just if I was to say it very simply, love, hate, things like that, and then compassion, desire, ambition. If I was to rattle these things off, they'd pick it all up, and then they'd start to find out why did they feel like this and why did they feel like that. And maybe not necessarily want to manipulate a person, but you're telling them what they want to know. And everyone's different, but human beings are all pretty much the same. Doesn't matter the colour of your skin, the language you use, the food that you eat. Human beings are all pretty much the same. They've all got their own agenda, just simply to stay alive or to be ambitious and move on to things. All of them, they all have an agenda. And these aliens, they weren't violent towards me or anything, but they were questioning. And that was only the first one. That was only the first one. There was others. But they were showing me things. They were showing me things that I had no idea. I had no idea why I was out of body. I saw this tornado coming across a flat desert plain, and I'm standing, and I know I'm out, so I just stand where I am. The next thing, I'm getting whipped up in the air, and I eventually end in a big pool of water. It's like a swimming pool, but much bigger, and it's circular. And all these other alien people are all got their arms folded and looking into the water to see what's coming up. I come up, but I'm about a week old. I'm about a baby. A baby. I came right up, and someone came in and lifted me out. Ended there. About 3 or 4 weeks later, I see myself back in the same situation. See this tornado coming round. I'm up, I go again. This woman, it was a woman. She had me. Oh, you could tell by the eyes, the outline of the face. It was feminine, and she holds me. And she was showing me at some point in time to all these other beings round about. She takes me to another pool and puts me in it, and woof, 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 I go down, right down. So maybe that I'm not going to read between the lines here. I'll look at what I think, but that meant I was coming back down, right? These are things I don't make up. I don't need to fabricate the truth in any way. These things actually happen. I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm absolutely sure I can't be the only one. The only things that might be different is, are they aware of what they're getting? Are they aware of the significance? What, even if it's something very small, that you're actually getting something given to you to make your mind work, see further than the end of your nose or the television screen, more expanding things. It's all there for us.
When you saw the ETs, were they greys or were they a different type?
No, this has been asked me many times, the greys. The only time I think I saw something like a grey was again at the beginning of when I started. These had different shaped heads. They were. I didn't know they were greys, but I did see something when I was in this training phase in the first few years. In a circle, darkened. They had a long box on top of a table. I were to focus on this box and see what happens. And I'm focusing like Billy over here, I don't see anything. And then suddenly, out of the box, I had a lid on it. I don't remember seeing the lid come up and down or anything. Steps this very small, what you might call a grey. I knew nothing about outer body stuff for spacemen, and I wasn't interested in that. I was into just getting in tune with guides. That's all I wanted to do. And this person or being stepped out, all in a mummy, more or less, all wrapped up. But where the eyes were was like 2 diamonds coming right out at you. Bright lights, whoosh, fixing on me. And I told the guy who was running the groups, I don't think that can be right. I've never heard of that. And I thought, well, you haven't heard of it until now. And since then, I've seen this thing, same thing, several times. I damaged my hip some years ago. I was in the Southern General Hospital, stretched out on a stretcher, on one of these wheeled trolley things they've got. And I was in agony. And I don't mean pain. I was in agony. I was hanging onto the sides of the bars. Sweat was coming off my forehead. I wasn't talking to anybody that was near me. I was in pain, absolute agony. And I suddenly just began to lose it. And I said, where are you when I need you now? That's all I ever said. And in my mind's eye, I saw this dark shadow coming right towards me within a minute. And I knew it was someone who was there to help me.
Mm-hmm.
But then this big male turned his back, and I thought, are you leaving me like this? He fell back, and in that second, there was no pain.
Mm.
I got off that trolley and started walking around. I could hardly breathe right 30 seconds before that.
Mm.
That actually happened.
Wow.
When you'll know when you've got some powerful people with you or not. For whatever reason, you'll know. You won't be shimmying, shallying about this sort of thing. You will know because they will show you stuff. They will show you some of their life. Other one that happened earlier on, out of body again, but it's a monk, and I'm seeing life through his eyes. 1700, maybe earlier than that, middle ages, 14, 15, 16, something like that. And he's a monk. And into this village comes men on horseback. And they've got a big bit of paper and they nail it on this post and they gallop off. And everyone's looking at it. And only one or two can read, right enough, but they're getting told what it said. And the monk says to me, this is what we have to do with our religion. But they can't stop you thinking. You can think what you want. They can't control that. But maybe to save your head for getting chopped off or put in prison, you follow the chain. But up here is most important. And in here is most important. That's what makes us human.
Mm. Mm. You mentioned Helen Duncan earlier, and it was interesting because I've been writing about her in my book, the mediumship sort of thing that she did, the physical trance mediumship. And for people that don't know, I'll just recount that Helen Duncan operated during the wartime, and she was arrested for her mediumship because she was bringing back dead sailors from various ships that had sunk, and the war ministry didn't want the word getting out about the fact these ships had been sunk, and yet here were the dead sailors coming through her physical mediumship announcing that they'd gone down on the HMS Hood or wherever it may have been. And I think what led to her demise was the fact that someone switched a light on or something in one of the seances, and it caused the ectoplasm to rush back into her body, the ectoplasm being the material that forms these spirit forms temporarily in a physical seance. But anyway, I was looking as part of my research on the Helen Duncan website, some testimonies that people had written about their own experiences. I presume it was after the war, after she had been released from prison, 9 months she was incarcerated, to get her off the scene, as it were. And there was someone there that said that they saw Helen Duncan materialize out of a seance cabinet, because they operate from a seance cabinet, a Highland piper with bagpipes, and he came out with a Highland pony that was nodding its head, completely nodding its head. And I thought it was an absolutely amazing account, really. I mean, considering that she was accused of swallowing muslin and regurgitating it, somehow forming it into the shapes of people. She was accused of having two stomachs like a cow, things like that. And yet here she was.
She was caught doing some fraudulent stuff, and that's what's given her a bad reputation.
This is the interesting
she was
thing.
Also a good medium.
Yeah, a lot of
day she was.
Yeah, a lot of mediums that are genuine, they do the genuine stuff. And then when they're having a bad day or their powers seem to be on the wane, then they try and reclaim their lost glory by then being fraudulent. And unfortunately, that backfires on them completely, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, in her heyday, she was producing all sorts of things coming through. And I was quite impressed by this Highland piper complete with a pony coming through. It was... I wish I'd been there to see it, really. I just hope they cleared up after it. So all the mediums that I've read about, the really great ones, tend to be from Scotland. And I thought, why is that? Is it the second sight or the seventh son of a seventh son, or what's going on there, do you think?
I think that's it. We're just all really very naturally psychically inclined.
It must be the spring water.
I'm only kidding. I honestly, I think if you looked in any other country, you would probably find other people who, you know, had the same sort of things. I think there's a reputation for like the Highlands and Islands to have this idea of the second sight, and it's, well, my granny had the second sight, you know, is usually what you hear. And I think that's come down through the generations, and perhaps in Scotland more than other places, I'm not sure. But when I started my divination circle, one of the first things that everybody says to you is, oh, when you mention tea leaves, oh, my granny read the tea leaves. Just about everybody's granny read the tea leaves.
Yeah, yeah. Must be a dying
And
art.
mine did.
Everyone has tea bags.
Yeah, exactly. It's a dying art. That's why I started the divination class or circle. It's not a class. Was to kind of keep these things going.
Nowadays, you find that the spirit can contact you with modern technology.
Yes.
And I didn't believe this till it happened to me. I didn't even give much consideration. And I'd been sending a friend a text about anything other than what we were talking about, what I'm going to talk about just now. And I'm waiting for this friend of mine to send me back information. And I'm constantly looking at my mobile phone thinking, you're taking a hell of a time, you know. I like people to respond quickly when I send something. Even if it's just briefly, catch up later, see you, blah, blah, anything. But just to leave it empty it's not very polite, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, and I look at it, and then I see this name in the little box, the name James. And I thought, James? And I couldn't figure anyone called it. And I thought, wait a minute, my Uncle James, who had died many years ago. And I'm looking at this, and then I feel someone beside me. And here is Uncle Jimmy, as I knew him. And he said, here, you do all this funny stuff, right? And he's over there. He said, you do all this funny stuff. We can't find Billy. Billy was his older brother who'd gone to Canada and into the States. All the family had died off by that time except my mother. And I said, yeah. He said, go and find him. We can't find him. And I thought, well, this is great. I've never tried this before. So I'm quite open about it. And I said to my teachers, the guides, wherever they label, any label they want, they can have. I said, I've never done this before. I don't know how to do this. Will you help me do this? And I just left it with them. I didn't pursue it. I didn't repeat it. I left it. Within a few days, up turns Billy. And he says, where's everybody? And again, it's a way I'm talking to you and you're responding to me. It's so familiar. It's just normal. It's just normal. And he said, I can't find them. Where are they all? I mean, this guy had been dead for 2 decades or something like this, maybe more. And I'm just saying, I just treat it as normal. Well, I know, they're looking for you too. He said, well, where is it? Where do we go? Where do we go? I said, I'll get someone in to help us. And going, right, fine, get on with it then. So I think it's a bit abrupt to that side of the family, you know. And I'm asking already, because I know this guy's here, he's going to have to be encouraged or led. I said, I've got someone here, friend of mine, and just follow them. They'll take you to them. They know where your mum and dad are, and your brothers and sisters and all that sort of stuff. They'll take you there. I said, fine. Here's another one that says, well, I'll see you later. And I'm saying, yeah, but not for a while. You just carry on. No. And that was it. I went back after my mother died. She went same way. But she got caught. My dad got her. I actually saw them in the TS. She died in the morning, but the afternoon I was back in the TS doing my stuff because I know she's going to get picked up. I know it's just going to happen. And the pair of them walk through the door. Dad's in his RAF uniform. He looks about 6 stone, you know, 5'4" or something, you know. He filled out, and she's there looking the way she did in her late teens, early 20s when they get married. They were there for about 30 seconds. I thought, I'm imagining this. And they just went and smiled and nodded at me and disappeared.
Wow.
I went back to see my brother Eric. He, and I'm telling him, yeah, I told Eric a lot of these things because he was afraid of dying.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to get him on board. And I tell him the funny stuff that was going on, not necessarily the morbid stuff, the coincidence, the fun things that I have when I was out doing stuff, either on land or out wherever, you know, on the other side. And it would raise his vibration, so he became more familiar with it.
Yeah.
But when Mum went away, that was all the family. That was all the Thompson side. That was them all gone. Granny, Granddad, 3 sons, 3 daughters. They were all away gone. And I went back to Eric's house. And I'm talking to Eric weeks and weeks later. And his wife's sitting there, and he's sitting over there. And I realised my attention has been drawn to the wall between them. And there they are, the whole family. Mm-hmm. Granny and Granddad, 3 sons, 3 daughters, and they're all just smiling. I thought, great. And Eric, he knew me. And he said, what are you looking at? I said, Eric, I've got a story to tell you. And I told him about all of this. We were all together. Great. Off. Oof. And that's it. And I always think both sides of my family, regularly now. I'm a student teachers regularly. They're my friends. I'll see them. When Eric's wife had died, about a year or so before he went into nursing care, I told Eric, when your tongue comes, Eric, you're not to be afraid, because the first thing you will see is you'll see her hand. You'll see Jeanette's hand, and she'll be the one that takes you across. She'll show you the ropes. A year later, I'm in a church, local one in Maryhill, and I'm not taking the platform. I'm among the punters. And the medium comes up and says, I've got this man, he's walking like this, and he's doing that. And then he says, you were exactly right. What you told me is exactly what happened.
Wow.
He saw his wife, she took him, and a chair is a chair, and a tree is a tree, and a man's a man, and a lady's a lady, and there's cats and dogs. It's all exactly as you said. That was from someone on the platform.
Yeah, it's interesting. When my mum came through this duo called Heavenly Voices, I don't know what you think about Ouija boards, spirit boards, whatever like that, but this is how she came through, this duo. Yeah. And she, you know, they had a protocol in place, which was to give the date of birth of your son or his middle initial, things like that, and give us your initial, the person that's coming through. And she didn't do anything. She just came straight through and said, hi, son, like that. And so I knew that it could only be my mum by saying the words, hi, son, because my dad was alive here in this present world. And there's and the only other person to say son would be my mum. And I know that it was her that had passed over. And now, a few weeks prior to her passing, and now we didn't know she was obviously going to pass away because it was such a sudden thing. My brother, who was staying at the house, kept saying that he could smell the smoke of our grandfather. My grandfather used to smoke roll-ups of a certain variety. I've long forgotten the brand, whatever like that, but he used to smoke these roll-ups. And I just used to have this vision of his tongue coming out all the time as a kid, going, licking these roll-ups, you know. That was just a vision that sticks with you, isn't it? Yeah. And so when my brother said that, when my mum died, my brother's kind of into this stuff as well, and we were discussing it, and he said, yeah, I smelled Grandad Bob's tobacco smoke. And I said, oh, well, that was perhaps a sign then that things were going to happen, you know. So I assumed from that it could have been my grandfather that came and collected my mum. So when she came through on this board and she said, hi, son, she said, I miss you. And I said, oh, well, I miss you too. But she goes, no, I miss you more. And I thought, well, that's interesting. The dead missing us, so to speak. And then I said, have you met up with Granny and Grandad Bob? Now, that was what us kids used to call my Granny and Grandad Bob. Even though my granny, we called her Granny Bob because it was just the name that stuck as kids, you see. Even though her name was Annie, we called her Bob. And she says, yes, I have. And then she quickly moved the glass around and said, my mum came and met me. And I thought, wow, that's interesting, because I was expecting for her to say, yes, my father came and collected me, which would have tied in with my preconceived notion of the tobacco smoke. Maybe he'd collect her. So when she said that, I thought, wow, that really pulled the rug from under my feet, because I wasn't expecting that at all, which to me shows it wasn't subconscious movement of the glass, or my beliefs coming through it or whatever, because it was saying things contrary to what I was expecting it to be. And so maybe about 10 months later, I had the opportunity to go along to another session with this duo called Heavenly Voices, and this time I was more prepared with my questions, because the first time it was a complete sort of bum on seat, we need someone to come along and fill up this evening, and I was chosen to go along, so I was lucky enough to get a reading. So this time, second time around, I thought I'll ask more about this thing about my mum coming through. And I said, you said your mum came through to collect you. Can you tell us what happened? Did you go through a tunnel of light or anything like that? And she said she was waiting in the corner of the room for me prior to me dying, type of thing. So where I actually sat in the bedroom sometime later where she died, and sat on the bed on her side of the bed. And I thought, okay, the corner of the room is over where the door is of the bedroom. So that's where I presumably thought my grandmother would have been. And it seems to me that spirits always seem to come through doorways, or are seen in doorways. And I thought that's probably because it acts as a portal, something like a seance cabinet or the mediums thing. Just wondered if you by the way you're saying yes, it's very common from your experience too then.
Yeah, I've had a couple of visions, usually through windows. So I think that's the same kind of thing.
Yes, windows. Spirits have been seen through windows as well. Yeah.
But when you were talking about the Ouija board, I was using the Ouija board from when I was about 14, and became quite a strong user of the Ouija board. And people would come to me to ask, like, if they were there, like, to set up the Ouija board. Now, it was just like bits of paper, it wasn't an actual board. And I did that up until I was in my early 20s, mid-20s, something like that. So I don't think that they're necessarily a dangerous thing, but I think you've got to be wary when you use it. If you're maybe not feeling so good, or you're maybe feeling a bit depressed, or you have any other sort of mental illnesses going on, you have to be a bit more careful. I didn't and don't, and never really had any issues. There was one occasion, but it wasn't a huge issue. But no, that's something again that you can use for divination.
Yeah. Well, we're wrapping up time here, everybody.
Soon.
Yeah, it's gone so soon. Yeah,
I'm just getting warmed up here,
Yeah, I'm just warming up. I think we're going to get it back for another show. But any last questions, Andy, before we wrap up?
I'd say if the Ouija board is kind of like on the lower end of things, what would you describe as like higher end things, or kind of like enlightened things to use?
Yeah, I'd say use your mind. Honestly, if people have worry beads, crosses, something to link to a deity, and since you want to use these, I don't poo-hoo this at all in any way. I have strong feelings towards Lord Buddha and Jesus, and I've seen them both. It doesn't mean I'm a holy willy. I'm definitely not. I've had my moments, but if you believe in these things, these artifacts, modern or ancient, they work for you. Put your heart and soul into that. You believe in it. All you have to do is be careful which one you're doing and why you're doing it. It's like the Ouija board. Right? I had a good experience with it, and I helped someone out of a nasty experience. And it was the good one was when people who were more involved and more experienced than me were using a Ouija board. All these people, including myself, knew we had the light on our side, and we started to do stuff. And I had I think a piece of paper, And I started to try and write things as I was given things. And it was working up to a point, and then I had to give the piece of paper, the note paper, to somebody else, and the Ouija board was working its magic or whatever. But as I was doing that, I was getting information coming back into my own head, and this person wrote all this stuff down for me, and it was all positive, and it was all to do with positive attitudes and a positive spirit who wanted this. The negative one was not for me, but I helped someone out of it. A guy who used to be in Bell's Hill when I had a class there, a circle, and he was one of these keep fit guys. He did all sorts of weightlifting and fast kung fu fighting and blah, all that stuff. And he had a sister who had when she had been about 14, 15, they used to have a few drams, you know, they hit the booze, and they had a Ouija board, and they got stuff. They got stuff happening, you see, and it was all very promising and good. And then it began very quickly to change. It was negative. It was threats. It was violence. It was insulting. And eventually, at one point, they got rid of the Ouija board. Fast forward something maybe about 10 years. She's a single parent. She's got a daughter, a little girl, about 6 or 7. And she's her brother comes and talks to me and tells me about this. Could you do anything? I says, well, I'll go and have a look. So find the lady, I get taken to where she lives. I'm talking to her. And as I'm talking to her, what we would call a demon appears in my mind. And he's all gruesome looking and big horns. And he's violent, very aggressive. And he doesn't want me there. I've been through all this before, right? The nasties. And he's cursing and swearing, and he's going to do this to me, and he's going to do that to me. And I said, you're going to do nothing. You took advantage of a girl who was not old enough to know her own decisions. You have no right to do this to her, and you just go away. Only I wasn't quite as polite as that, but I'm saying it in my head, so I'm not upsetting the young lady, you know. But he started, and it almost as he did this, iron bars came down, and he started trying to shake them, because he was in a jail now of his own making. All these iron bars, he's shaking, and the roof of this cave or whatever it is, he's in, starting to crumble, and he's giving it wildly. You know, he's really doing it. And I said, makes no difference. You can't have her. You took advantage of her. I've got a paper here. He showed me a scroll thing. She's mine. She belongs to me. She agreed to this. She agreed to nothing. You took advantage of someone who couldn't look after themselves. Get the hell out of here. Go on. Bugger off. You're not going to have her. That's all there is to it. And he was ranting and raving, and I just switched off from that. That was it. I'd said my piece. A couple of weeks later, her brother comes back to the group I had. And I said, how's she doing? She said, everyone's quiet. She's never had a problem since. It's all gone. And I've done this many times. And I tell people, if they've got a problem like that, you're in control of your life. Anyone that intrudes on your life that you don't want, remove them. Just tell them. Universal law. This is your life, your time, you take care of it. And if you don't like what's going on, shift it. Move it away from you. If you feel they're coming back, or if it's anything you think is going to repeat itself, it's merely a memory. It's an echo, and it will fade. It's not the real baddies coming back. You've already moved them, and I've told you how to do it if they come back again. And I've moved them. It will only be a memory. It's not the real thing. That was the way it ended.
Ian, where can people contact you, and how can they contact you if they've got any issues or problems?
Well, usually they just well, they know me, so they phone up, but they know somebody else, or they get
people that are watching this though, or listening to this that don't know you. Through Alyson's Facebook, email,
Ian.Shanes57.
Yeah. Oh, right. You say it. I forget that.
It's Ian.Shanes57@gmail.com.
Ian.Shanes.
Yes.
57 at gmail.com.
Yeah, Ian.Shanes57 gmail.com.
Okay, so that's if they want to have a chat with you, just even if they want to ask you questions, it may not need any rescuing as such, but I'm sure there'd be a few people that would be keen to try and track you down for a few more questions or something, or invite you to something. It'd be interesting. Well, thank you very, very, very much indeed for joining us on our Paranormal Peep Show once again. Thanks for Alyson for getting Ian on board this time. It's been very interesting couple of hours with lots of interesting discussions.
Interesting man.
Very interesting man. Lots of experience. I'm sure there could be another follow-up because there's obviously, so you're just warming up. But us Earth-based spirits need bedtime, I think. So so yeah. But thank you very, very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.
Take care, and
You
thank
too.
you, Andy, for coming on because he got out of his sick bed to rejoin us because he wasn't sure if he'd make it. So Andy's on the mend. So I'm sure he'll be
Glad
bright and
you're on the
sparkly.
mend, Andy. Hope you continue.
Yeah.
Once
You
he
take
gets
care of
that,
yourself, Andy.
Once he gets his magic formula from Canada through the post, and providing
There you
the
go.
drug squad haven't taken it, it'd be all right. Okay, join us next time on the Paranormal Peep Show on the Paranormal UK Radio Network, and it's from Andy and myself, from Alyson and Ian. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Night all.